Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Thursday, December 16th, 2021. My name is Emma Vigeland, in for Sam Seder, and this is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Ted Miller, author of A Conspiratorial Life, Robert Welch, the John Birch Society, and the Revolution of American Conservatism. Meanwhile, congratulations to Joe Manchin, who has nearly blown up the Build Back Better bill entirely. That's what he wanted all along. Suddenly, he's against the one-year child tax credit extension. Without an extension, 10 million children will fall back into poverty, and the potentially last check was sent out yesterday.
Don't want entitlement, folks.
Nope. A new study presented to the World Health Organization yesterday suggests that vaccines still provide strong protection against Omicron. While studies have, the booster specifically. While studies have been showing that the variant can evade antibodies, there are encouraging signs about the T cells, another kind of immune cell in vaccinated people, providing a second line of defense. This comes as COVID cases are skyrocketing. I know firsthand. The UK set a daily record in cases, and cases in the US are on the rise again as well. The tally death toll in the US has passed 800,000. President Biden toured Kentucky yesterday after devastating storms killed at least 75 and left 1,000 people homeless. This comes as unprecedented storms have hit much of the central U.S. as well. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi rejected a call to ban lawmakers and their spouses from trading stocks. I'm sure that her past history has nothing to do with that. More on that after headlines. And lastly, revolutionary feminist writer, capitalist critic, and social justice advocate Bell Hooks has passed away at 69 years old. She helped popularize the concept of intersectional feminism and broaden the scope of feminist thinking. Rest in power, Bell Hooks. All this and more on today's program. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Sam is out, as he is every Thursday, but we have a great show for you. I know Sam touched on it, but my absence was very unexpected on Tuesday. Actually, I was in the office, got a text at around 11:30 a.m. Eastern, half hour before the show starts. My friend says, who I was with on Saturday, I think I have COVID. And I slowly put on my mask, and I was just like,
all of a sudden we hear Emma speaking, and I look up and she has her mask on. It's like, I wonder what news she just got. So
I kind of had a bit of a panic, not a panic attack, I shouldn't say that, but I was like, oh my God, I really don't want, I don't want anybody here to get sick, obviously, and I've tried to be pretty careful, but I think, maybe I've been going to more friend hangouts. I've been a little looser with this, and this has been a reality check for me. I got a rapid negative and then a PCR negative. My boyfriend also rapid negative, PCR negative. And it seems like the person who I was with a few other friends, didn't start shedding virus until after, because no one else seems to have gotten it, which is really good news. But that's why I was unexpectedly out of the studio on Tuesday and Wednesday. Just wanted to explain that to everybody, but I am back. And I'm here to rip on Nancy Pelosi. That's kind of what I'm, that's the way to start the day off on the right foot. So Nancy Pelosi, she made a strong statement yesterday. She girl bossed all over this bitch. she was outraged. She was taking the parties to task that need to be taken to task.
She was leaning in.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Sandberg would be so proud because was she directing her ire at Joe Manchin, who's trying to kill the entire Biden agenda and throw 10 million United States children into poverty? Was it because Pelosi still can't get over how furious she was about Lauren Boebert launching Islamophobic attacks on Ilhan Omar? Do we have an update on any censure vote, by the way? Doesn't seem like leadership's that interested in that. But wait, let me look at my notes. Sam does that better than me. This can't be right. This can't be right. She was actually outraged because some members of her caucus want to ban lawmakers from engaging in what is essentially insider trading? Here she is, answering a question about that.
Madam Speaker, Insider just completed a 5-month investigation finding that 49 members of Congress and 182 senior congressional staffers have violated the Stock Act, the insider trading law. I'm wondering if you have any reaction to that, and secondly, should members of Congress and their spouses be banned from trading individual stocks while serving in Congress?
No, I don't know to the second one. We have a responsibility to report in the stock, on the stock, but I'm not familiar with that 5-month review, but if people aren't reporting, they should be. Because this is a free market and people, we're a free market economy, they should be able to participate in that.
It's interesting. I mean, maybe the spouse thing is what got her, because there are people on Reddit and on TikTok, literally. Pelosi's so famous for this that there are people who follow her husband, Paul Pelosi, and his stock trading because there's common knowledge that what he's doing might make them money. I mean, and it makes sense. Pull up this article, if you could, Bradley, from July of this year. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband cashed in on big tech just as Congress was set to pounce. Can scroll down a little bit. No, it's okay. This week, before the House Judiciary Committee voted on reining in big tech, Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband exercised a bullish bet on Google parent Alphabet, a timely transaction that netted him $5.3 million. The antitrust bill was advanced as a push by the government to curb the unregulated power of big tech firms Google, Amazon, Apple, and Facebook. It was the final part of a 6-part package called Ending Platform Monopolies Act, aimed at restricting how big tech companies offer their products to ensure they don't use their size to dominate the market. I guess the details aren't that fully important there. That's all we really need to see. But this is not this has happened before with Pelosi's husband as well.
I mean, this is classic free market stuff. Like, how can the market allocate capital efficiently if, like, what's his name, Richard Burr can't unload a whole bunch of hospitality stock right before a pandemic, the full scale of a pandemic is known. Like, that's market 101.
And yeah, it's interesting too how, like, how are Pelosi and the Democrats able to deploy an attack effectively on that front when, say, Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff are running in the Georgia Senate elections, and it was Kelly Loeffler, I believe, who was engaging in brazen insider trading when the Democrats have control of both chambers. Nancy Pelosi is not interested in doing anything to stop that because, as I mentioned, just this past year, one move by her husband was able to net her and him $5.3 million. And it's interesting because regular citizens who are made aware of non-public information prior to a trade, they go to, nominally, people go to jail for insider trading. I mean, everybody knows that's what Martha Stewart went to jail for. They are apparently not engaging in the free market in a way that is free. But members of Congress also have access to information prior to trades happening, and they're doing the same exact thing, except it's just sanctioned. The difference is because they make the laws. Martha Stewart or the trader who I'm not going to, cry a river for people who get convicted of insider trading, but the hypocrisy makes sense. Like,
should have been a lot more heads rolling besides Martha Stewart.
Right. There are people on Wall Street who engage in this all the time. I think insider trading should be more, should be enforced with the law much more aggressively. Yeah, and that applies to members of Congress who are just doing it with a different flavor.
I'd frankly be much more aggressive with outsider trading as well, but that's a little bit beside the point.
Yeah, right, exactly. I mean, I agree. Passive wealth
exactly.
increases.
And like this on top of like the BBB failure and the student loan stuff, it's like, particularly the squad, like they can't be sharing money with these people, small donor money. Like some kind of line has to be crossed here, because this is absolutely despicable, the jag that the Democrats are on right now.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I saw Andrew Lawrence. I mean, we'll move into a break in a second, but just tweeted a video of a guy continuously punching himself in the nuts, and compared that to what the Democrats are like in power. Pretty accurate. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will be joined by Ted Miller to talk about the John Birch Society and more. We are back, and we are joined right now by Ted Miller, author of A Conspiratorial Life, Robert Welch, the John Birch Society, and the Revolution of American Conservatism. Welcome to the show, Ted. Thanks for being here.
Oh, it's always a pleasure to be here on Majority Report.
Well, I'm excited to talk about this with you because I love any way that we can historicize the current dynamics that we are all experiencing in the present day. I mean, that it sounds a little redundant, but it's true. I mean, the current way that American conservatism exists, I mean, you hear a lot of people go, what happened to the Republican Party? What happened to American conservatism? I mean, there used to be reasonable Republicans. I'd quibble with that, but like that's largely a reference to the Trump takeover, the kind of post-truthism that we're living in with the Republicans, the QAnon types. And your book shows that you can really trace that back to the John Birch Society and Robert Welch. So I guess let's start with the John Birch Society's founder, Robert Welch. Who was he, and how did he get his start?
Robert Welch was born in 1899, and he was a candy manufacturer, and he created such childhood favorites as the Sugar Daddies and the Junior Mints. He would do very well in candy and make a significant amount of money, but he decided that he wanted to focus on educating Americans about the threat of communism. And he was very concerned about this, and he believed that, in particular, that the current president at the time, Dwight David Eisenhower, was a communist. And he started an organization called the John Birch Society in 1958. Which continues to this day, and it was an organization comprised of businessmen, 11 members met at Margaret Dice's home in Indiana, and they basically were a conspiratorial organization that argued that Earl Warren ought to be impeached, that the United States should get out of the UN, that income taxes were too high. So it was an organization that was seen at the time as sort of the on the fringes, but over time, as you eloquently mentioned, it has been recent historians have looked at it, and we're reconsidering that this was an organization that was paramount to the rise of the conservative movement.
Yeah, and I mean, I laugh at the Eisenhower communist conspiracy just because I, know enough about Eisenhower to make that it's so ridiculous. But I mean that's not so far off from what we're seeing today. About there are secret allegiances in the deep state, and there are. You could also maybe draw some lines to. I don't want to go down this road, but there were people that went a little hard with Trump as a Russian agent. That's a little bit different. That's from the left, but I don't want to get sidetracked on that. I mean, this kind of paranoia, it's the muscle memory is just still super relevant.
To suggest that Dwight Eisenhower was a communist, the man who defeated Hitler, the man who organized the D-Day invasion, the man who was responsible for passing legislation that was not communistic. I mean, we're talking about he was passing a minimum wage increase and a Social Security increase. It's not that communistic, if as far as my opinion goes.
Yeah. So I guess let's start, and we can kind of go through the timeline of the origins of the John Birch Society, and then really, I guess, through the 60s and up to Reagan, if you'd like. I mean,
sure.
How much of the foundation of the John Birch Society and Robert Welch's radicalization came from a knee-jerk response to FDR's politics and the New Deal?
That's a very interesting question, and I think that his conspiratorial viewpoint, as I mentioned in the book, has many. There's many dimensions to it. He's a boy who's born in the South during a time when there was a lot of discussion of the lost cause, and there was a discussion of his grandparents, and his parents would talk about how the North was going to end slavery. The Welches came from a family in which there were participants in the Confederate side of the Civil War who. And they did fear losing their slaves, and they feared an encroaching, monopolizing Eastern establishment that was going to wreak havoc on their farm system. They were farmers. There's also other aspects of Welch's conspiratorial viewpoint that are influenced, such as the fact that he was a candy man, and there was no patent there's no patent even today on making candy. And so candy men tend to be suspicious, to put it euphemistically. And if you take a look at the Mars family, they are very concerned that others would, come up with the discovered the secret ingredient to the next breakthrough, or the everlasting gobstopper.
I mean, yeah, go on.
And so, I mean, those are the things that are influencing Welch. Where he was coming from, his background, but the times in which he kind of was during his 40s, the Republicans were concerned about the loss of China, and Robert Welch became convinced that McCarthy was right. Joseph McCarthy was right, that the Democrats had lost China, and McCarthy went after Atchison, and he went after the Army of the United States, and Welch just took it to the next level. He went after the head of the Army, Dwight Eisenhower.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine too, when you I've never thought about the Candyman being a bit protectionist or whatever, but it makes sense when you have a baseline of paranoia about trying to keep what is yours, that those politics might blend into what we saw the John Birch Society become in Robert Welch, his politics.
In my research, I happened to walk through Cambridge, where where Welch had his company, and there's a lot of candy companies there. And the windows, you can't see through the windows because I think that the CEOs have made sure that they don't want to be they don't want the opposition to know what's going on behind those windows. So there is something this is something for a future PhD dissertation, maybe, to explore the Candyman's suspicion.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess before I do want to get to Eisenhower, but I want to talk about how his politics evolved during the Truman administration. So he seemed to feel like you were either surrendering to communists, or you were a communist, or you were in my group. Truman, he felt, was, I guess, not weak in the face of communism. Tell us a little bit about how his politics came to be during the Truman administration.
Well, it's very much influenced by many middle-class liberals at the tail end of World War II. America really believed that it could do anything. We could, as JFK said, bear any burden, support any foe, to ensure the survival and the success of liberty. There was an unlimited ability to do things. And Welch basically came to the conclusion that, okay, we oppose China going communist in 1949, right? We won World War II. So why did it go communist? Well, instead of arguing that it was mistakes, or maybe the Chinese people decided to go in that particular direction, Welch had a different analysis. He just came to the conclusion that they wanted to be democratic, but they not only wanted to be democratic, they should be democratic, and it's our fault that they're not democratic. So that's what and conspiracy was involved in it.
How did he come to the conclusion that the people of China were just like unwillingly being taken over by communism, and that it was Truman's fault for not stopping that surge?
I think it's a basic assumption that everybody, and a really important point that a lot of Americans had this belief in American exceptionalism, that if people did not want to be democratic, there was something wrong with them. And Welch basically said that if they are not democratic, it's our fault, and it's not through mistakes, it's through nefarious treason.
And what was Welch's understanding of or definition of democracy?
Well, that's an interesting thing. I mean, Welch had a generally negative view of democracy as we understand it. I mean, today we're in a wonderful time where African Americans can vote because of the 1965 Voting Rights Act. We're in a time where women can vote because of the 1920 passage of a constitutional amendment. And we have a lot of folks who are following that trend, and they're participating in elections. But Welch really believed that we're a republic, not a democracy. We're a country that elects individuals who we give certain rights to in order that we may live in this. Well, if you go back to Hobbes, I guess we don't live in a state of nature. Welch is basically saying that this is the way it is. We should follow our elected representatives, and democracy in the streets is not the answer.
It's just interesting, but the ideal must be applied internationally as like an extension of American greatness and thus anti-communist greatness. So it's odd it's maybe a fruitless endeavor to point out all the contradictions, but it's fascinating to me how someone's psychology can be that inconsistent.
Well, it's the psychology of a lot of Americans after World War II, because it was anything was possible. There was this confidence that we can't even fathom today. When we speak about it, when we think about what they had done, and it was this unbelievable belief that anything was possible, and like JFK would believe it. JFK believed that we can go to the moon in 8 years. That we're America. We can do this, and I think that Welch falls under that category.
Right.
I mean, completely ideologically different, but really believes that there's something the matter if everybody's not democratic. So
let's turn then to, I guess, the election that brought Eisenhower to power, because Eisenhower clearly wasn't Welch's type of guy. I mean, or maybe preferred type of Republican candidate the way he was campaigning, I would imagine. Like, one, where was Welch in his political influence at the time of the election where Eisenhower won? And two, he clearly he was not that was not his primary choice in the Republican Party.
No, he was a Taft supporter, and he actually campaigned actively with Taft, driving around Cambridge with Taft, and he tried a corny joke on Taft, and Taft just looked at him like, that wasn't funny. And that's kind of how Taft was, but he saw things that were going on throughout the course of that election with Taft that bothered him. He saw for some reason, the associates that Eisenhower was involved with, and he came to the conclusion that Eisenhower was participating with some individuals who were of the not the right disposition. They were of the far left, and he basically came to the conclusion that Taft stole the election. Eisenhower stole the election from Taft, and Taft would have made a great president. According to Welch, Welch was, despite the fact that he was from North Carolina and had come to Massachusetts, he was more of a Midwestern Republican. He believed in small business, and his candy business depended on the milk and the dairy products, of course, that would come from the Midwest. But there was something that really bothered him about that election. He believed that, that's why he hated Earl Warren so much. He believed that a deal was made between Nixon and Eisenhower and Warren, so that Warren would support Eisenhower's getting the delegation from in California in return for the appointment to Chief Justice. So Welch came to that conclusion. And so you see all these in the later John Birch Society, you see all these impeach Earl Warren signs on barns and cars and all across the land, really, on billboards.
And you can, I mean, again, to bring it to present day, stolen elections, backroom deals that elevate somebody who isn't rightfully supposed to be there. That is this is where a lot of this groundwork was laid for this like modern conservatism, as you write in your book. And I want to like move into then the Eisenhower presidency, so we can get to the launch of the John Birch Society at the end of the 1950s. I mean, there was the Sputnik launch under Eisenhower. There were, well, let me just ask that then. The Sputnik launch, how much did that freak Welch out? And how much did that kind of inform his conspiracy theory that Eisenhower was secretly a communist?
Welch didn't even think there was a Sputnik launch.
Oh.
He believed there was it was launched by the Americans. He believed that the Russians did not have the capability technologically to launch a satellite into outer space, and concluded that he said something to the effect that that we don't believe that you have a space program, and there was no Sputnik, and this is a non-issue.
Because they're Soviet, and you can't possibly have technological success if you're not a capitalist society, right? It
was just phony. It was there was no Sputnik, didn't exist, or Sputnik 2. It didn't happen.
Working backwards from the like American exceptionalist or capitalist conclusion, and then everything stems from that. That's how the thinking pattern is inversed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he continues that throughout. It's there's no real reason to be alarmed about the Cuban Missile Crisis, because they don't have the ability to launch missiles. It's a completely, the book is a completely different world. If you want to have an introduction to American history from a completely different perspective, it's a great introduction. So it's a very interesting introduction to. It was interesting just seeing how somebody thought like that. It was fascinating.
Yeah, and let's then, I guess, let's go to the founding of the John Birch Society at the end of the 1950s, which also coincided with the rise of William F. Buckley and the founding of the National Review. My understanding is that Buckley was deeply associated with the John Birch Society, but publicly did not wanted there to be some distance, because there was a belief that there was a bit kooky. I guess that's kind of two questions in one, which is my MO. So I guess the founding of the John Birch Society, and then also if you could talk a little bit about Buckley.
Well, Buckley was tangled up in the John Birch Society in the beginning, because his funding from Roger Millikan came from the same funding. Buckley's funding came from the same funding that the John Birch Society came from. Willie Schlam was a excellent editor of American Review. He was also in Buckley's National Review, American Opinion, excuse me, is Welch's magazine. But Willie Schlamm was the editor of, well, it was a writer in American Opinion, and he was also in the National Review, and also Medford Evans wrote for both. So Buckley is very reluctant at first to take on this organization with so many ties. It's tough to cut out a cancer when what he sees as a cancer, this conspiratorial cancer, when in fact it's a really tight dynamic. He's trying to break free of it, and he ultimately comes to the conclusion that he has to, and he basically says that we need to put Robert Welch where he should be, in the editorial room, instead of serving as the president of the John Birch Society. And he condemns those who support the John Birch Society. He also encourages Barry Goldwater to do the same. And generally there was this belief for this long time, because Buckley was a master chronicler of the conservative movement. He really was the person who said, he wanted to protect it. And he wanted to say, I am the person who is going to say that this is how it happened. And for a while, he did a great job at it. And so Buckley presents this narrative that he completely ostracized Welch from the movement, when in fact, as I look back, as I went through my book, it's not the case that Welch hung around for a long time, kind of like the fundamentalists in the 1930s after, in the 1920s after the monkey trial, with Clarence Darrow and William Jennings Bryan. He changed his story. He came up with new issues, and Buckley never excommunicated him, and hence today.
Yeah, I mean, so Buckley was just kind of, I guess, sidelining him while still wanting to say two things at once, or to speak to two audiences at once, which often conservatives are really, really good at. I guess this is a good opportunity to also talk about what the John Birch Society was. I mean, at this point, how many chapters were they? How did they recruit members? What was the purpose of a lot of their project outside of like the adjacent publications that were promulgating these conspiracy theories?
Well, it's interesting because it's primarily an educational organization. Some of the folks have said that Welch was an autocrat and a sort of they Mike Newbury in the early 1960s called him the Führer, but it really wasn't the case, because he couldn't control some of the members of the council, and like for people like Clarence Mannion, they wanted Clarence Mannion was on the council of the John Birch Society and was a very prominent conservative, and also the former law school head of Notre Dame. But he basically comes to the conclusion that we should be focusing on electing candidates. And Welch basically says, no, we're just an educational organization. We're not going to get involved in politics. So that's what it was. It was an organization where people could get together, men and women, would meet in chapters in their neighborhoods, and they would discuss the issues that were in the bulletin, and maybe they'd watch a film from Welch himself, where he'd talk about the communist conspiracy. They would read books together. They'd read books like something from Victor Lasky or Dan Smoot, who are these ultra-conservative writers. Even after this breakdown between the relationship, Welch is still saying you should read Buckley's books. You should read William Kirk's books. So, it was an organization that was primarily an educational organization that got dragged into these political issues because of Welch's conspiracism.
Well, I mean, it's education, I guess, for a purpose, right? It's meant to. I mean, it reminds me sort of what we're experiencing right now with the anti-critical race theory push, where you can activate people on a grassroots level by energizing them, saying, well, the liberals, the left, communists in this instance, are an existential threat, and they're changing your way of life. And here we can organize in your communities, and then it activates people politically.
That's a super point. I never thought of that analogy. But that is, that would be, the type of thing, it would be like, doesn't Earl Warren really upset you? Look at all the horrible things that Earl Warren has done. And, look what he's done with the, I mean, that's what he's really going for when he's trying to impeach Earl Warren. Welch would mention not only the Brown versus Board of Education decision, but he'd mention the fact that Warren passed other Supreme Court decisions that allowed, that prohibited state legislatures to ask individuals about their political affinities. So, that's what he was driving at. Or, Welch would say there's been restrictions on your gun rights, or there is a war on Christmas going on. Isn't this something that should drive you to elect more conservative politicians? Yeah, right. I think you're absolutely right. Yeah.
So how this?
I included that in the book.
I mean, it's all good. It's in the discussion. There clearly also was a precedent for a part of the conservative movement that called prominent members of the Republican party leaders, essentially traitors, and people who were beholden to other interests. That's obviously something we're seeing too in the Republican Party today with the base. Like, how would Welch, I guess, feel about that legacy? Would that be something that he's proud of? I mean, and do you see those parallels that I pointed out today?
Well, Welch, I for one, he couldn't stand Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon was, to him, it was all about Richard Nixon. Welch had him. I mean, he was quite prescient on Richard Nixon. He was quite perspicacious. He understood where Nixon was heading, and he believed that Nixon was all about himself. And he saw him as even in the early 1950s, he saw Nixon as just promoting himself and a slippery politician, and not committed to anything except Richard Nixon. And so I would, he would be one. Welch was very reluctant to attack politicians, but he made it very clear that he was not a fan of Richard Nixon, nor did Richard Nixon fit into his understanding of what a conservative should be.
So let's, I guess, move to to JFK and the presidency, and then there was a decline in John Birch Society membership. It seems like that coincided pretty well with JFK's presidency, but there was an uptick in conspiracy. Am I wrong about that?
Well, actually, no. It was JFK was great for the John Birch Society.
My bad. I'm got my dates mixed up. Go on.
No problem. Because what happened was when JFK became president, it was like there was a spike in membership to the John Birch Society, and then after the Goldwater loss, there was a downturn. So,
gotcha. Okay. So I guess let's talk about their how they evolved during the JFK presidency, because afterwards, with his assassination, we're also there seemed to be a greater understanding of, or people start to speculate the government is doing things that you may not know about, and there are public, the public is largely hidden from some of the machinations that may be happening behind the scenes. Like, there's just a bit more of a public awareness of legitimate conspiracy, I guess, which also then leads to illegitimate conspiracy theories. So I guess let's talk about the JFK presidency and what it did.
So obviously Welch was very unhappy with the Kennedy presidency, his support for civil rights. Welch believed the civil rights movement was a communist conspiracy. He also was convinced that he actually was quite prescient as far as understanding that the Castro was a communist. And he knew even by 1958 that he was a communist, and he thought that Kennedy's treatment, even despite the fact that Kennedy invaded the Cuban Missile Crisis, during the Bay of Pigs, Welch attacked, in fact, eviscerated JFK for doing this, which didn't really make any sense, because he had attempted to overthrow it was the liberation policy that Republicans had dreamed of.
Right.
This has been something that was finally done, and it was a little hypocritical there, that it wasn't I point that out in the book, that this is finally, you're getting what you want, and it didn't. You should be a little more empathetic. So, but as the Kennedy presidency continues, there are other conservatives who get involved in this, and one of those conservatives is Dan Smoot, who's close with Welch. And Dan Smoot, he comes up with this idea that the Council on Foreign Relations, that it was an organization that was sort of a government within the government, and this really helps radicalize conspiratorial thinking, because what happens is this is a way that Welch moves beyond this kind of idea of that the communists are behind everything. And now he says it's the people inside the government, it's the deep state that's running the show. And this is something that we see today as well. That's what came out during JFK's presidency.
Right. And these theories, they begin with kernels of truth, and then of course, at least especially on the right, they become unhinged. We're running out of time, so I do want to jump ahead to Ronald Reagan, because I know that that's a bit of a time jump, but it seems to me that his presidency is the ultimate John Birch Society presidency. Would you say that?
Yeah, and even I was thinking the other night when there's plenty of examples that come to mind, but I was thinking about this, and when Kennedy was running for president, Reagan said, "Under the boyish lock of hair, it's the same old thing." Karl Marx. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. John Kennedy started the tax cut that you completed in 1981, and that's quite a jump. So even as early as 1960, Reagan is talking about this a different type of worldview that's from reality. So in 1976, Reagan he runs against Ford. and in his campaign materials, he supports this anti-cancer quack treatment called Latrell that was developed by a John Birch Society, the person who took over for Robert Welch, Larry McDonald, and basically Reagan says this is something you should try, and the problem is it's killing people. It's a problem. So, and he also says that the Soviet Union is planning a potential first launch, and they're sending 20 million of their young people to an area of the Soviet Union to respond to that launch, so they can survive the launch. He said that Gerald Ford's assassination attempts were delegitimate. They were not legitimate, that he made them. I mean, the list goes on and on. So yeah, it's Reagan is especially between that period when he's no longer governor until the time he becomes president, and even after he becomes president, he's aping a lot of the things very subtly how Welch and the John Birch Society think.
And then it seems to me that he fuses that with he's speaking to evangelical, the evangelical base, and merges these two, like a conspiratorial element or a anti-communist element with the evangelical base, and that's just the Republican base now.
The most surprising thing that came out of my book was the fact that Robert Welch was ahead of the Republican Party on abortion. In other words, opposing abortion. Mm-hmm. Head of the Republican Party on ERA, head of the Republican Party on social issues like sex education, and head of the Republican Party on taxation. In fact, one of the Birchers, Louis Euler, supported and was the leader of Proposition 13 that led to all the tax in Massachusetts. I live here in Massachusetts, and we still have the Proposition 2.5 as a result of Reagan's Proposition 13. But it resulted in Reagan's passage of the tax bill of 81 that dropped the taxes from 70% to 50%. So it's not just conspiracy, it's policy. Right. It's really the policy that Welch is instrumental in establishing. What he does is Welch kind of realizes that the John Birch Society has been maimed as far as its name, and there are going to be fewer individuals joining it because of its reputation. So what he does is he establishes these ad hoc committees, and these are ad hoc committees that focus on one issue in particular, like taxation or the ERA or abortion. And this is how he gets through and really influences the Republican Party of Reagan. He in a sense builds the Reagan Revolution.
It's fascinating stuff. I really appreciate your time today. Ted Miller, his book is called, and I'm pulling it up in my notes right now, A Conspiratorial Life, Robert Welch, the John Birch Society, and the Revolution of American Conservatism. Thank you so much for your time today, Ted. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. It's always a pleasure to be on Majority Report.
Absolutely. Appreciate that. Thanks so much. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break, come back, wrap up the first hour. We are back. And we are probably just going to wrap up the first hour of the show and head into the fun half. We'll be taking your calls. We'll be reading your IMs, all that fun stuff. So check us out. Make sure, if you haven't yet, to buy your tickets for the Majority Report live show at the Wilbur Theater, the Wilba, on January 16th. The big live. We're going to be there, all of us, all four of us, Bradley, Matt, Sam, and myself, and some guests, H. John Benjamin, Larry Murphy, Natalie Schur, and perhaps some more. So
maybe Clint Schilling. I'm still working on it.
Oh, everybody check
Kurt Schilling, not
Kurt Schilling. I was like, is that somebody I don't know?
Clint Schilling is like a Nashville baseball player.
Yeah, but Kurt Schilling, we have a good shot at. As well as Big Poppy.
He needs some money, frankly.
And naturally, Gary Busey. All right, Matt, what happened last night on Left Reckoning?
We had a very good conversation.
Besides you missing basketball.
I did. I missed all the basketball last night, which is something that happens, I realized, during Left Reckoning during basketball season. But we had Liza Featherstone in to talk about her piece. She talked about Josh Hawley's sort of appeal to masculinity and how the left should try to address that. And so we cover all sorts of folks from Paul Robeson to Christopher Hitchens and Teddy Roosevelt. So we talk about the a full breadth of masculinity last night.
Paul Robeson,
yes.
The bass player or the musician?
I mean, he was musical. He was also a dramatic actor and a communist. Right. And yeah, I mean, really much a Renaissance man.
He wasn't a bass player, bass baritone.
But so we talked about that last night, and we also talked about the Democrats are being bad and why the PMC party would do something like start student loan debt. Spoiler alert, it's about coercing labor. And you can get a little bit of money out of it. You get austerity, you can address inflation and the quote-unquote worker shortage at the same time without paying people more. And it's, of course, too tempting for a Democrat like Joe Biden to turn down. So patreon.com/Left Reckoning to get all that. And check it out.
I definitely will check out the Paul Robeson stuff because my grandpa, who was a socialist, used to play me Showboat, like the musical that he was singing in, and would always talk about how much he loved Paul Robeson. And now maybe I understand the political sympathies behind those things.
Oh yeah, I could recommend you a book on Paul Robeson. He is completely based. Yep.
Yeah, I wanna. Now I'm. It's all flooding back to me. Haircut Binder and Brandon are here. Hey guys.
Hi. I didn't get a haircut.
Yeah. Well, no. Binder's the guy today.
Yeah. Haircut Binder. That's the nickname all the cool kids are calling me nowadays.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll just go ahead and start it off here.
Yes,
tonight.
What's happening on Doom?
Yeah. Tonight at 9 p.m. over at youtube.com/Matt Binder and twitch.tv/Matt Binder on Doomed. Parker Malloy will be joining me to discuss the forever war known as the War on Christmas. Of course, the right-wing manufactured War on Christmas. We'll be diving into the latest on that and the history of it and how the right continues to push it every year for a fun holiday episode of Doomed.
Very nice. Brandon, what's happening over on the discourse?
We will also be doing an episode, but it will be in counter to Matt's episode about how the war on Christmas is in fact real. Mm-hmm. And it's been being fought for, I want to say, millennia by aliens and Christians and Santas. So look out for that. That's going to be our Christmas episode.
Very nice. Warring podcast episodes in the War on Christmas.
I'm trying to have a more optimistic take.
I mean, yeah, I can appreciate that. All right, we are going to head into the fun half. 646-257-3920. Taking your calls, taking your IMs, having a great time. See you there.
Left is best. Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
You know, I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous? You're a little bit upset? You're riled up?
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude, you want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
Some good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457. 2, 38, 56, 27. 1/2. 5 eighths. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy.
Dance, dance, dance.
Rand Paul.
I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Good. Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey, Sam. Hey, Andy. You guys ready to do some evil?
Hitler was such an idiot.
That guy might be a Nazi.
Agreed.
No.
Death to America.
You.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way! Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook. Throw our hands up. Ooh. Wow.
But Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me,
Hey! Shut up!
Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Sam will be with you shortly.
I don't.
We are back, and we are trying to decide figure out what ASMR stands for. But
Yeah.
Auditory stimulus, something response, I think.
It's autonomous sensory meridian response.
Whoa!
Whoa.
I would have bet a lot of money that it was auditory.
Autonomous.
Autonomous.
You can do it to your.
Huh?
You can either have it done to you or do it to yourself. I don't know what's the autonomous. What is autonomous describing?
The sound, maybe what the sound in itself is autonomous.
The reaction to the sound, like the physical response. I don't know anything about ASMR. I think that trend kind of just came and gone without me. Kind of like when they were making all that GAC or whatever slime from Nickelodeon on Instagram. That was really popular.
Yeah. That was crazy. It's very fascinating how things can go sort of viral on a visual medium like Instagram and become a practice.
Wait, what about slime?
So I noticed this a lot because Sam was talking about it because his kids were doing it because it became this thing where you create different sorts of slime with different textures and different colors and stuff like that, and you mix it up, and it's like a fun thing for kids to do. I think there's some issues with maybe some toxic.
Oh yeah, people were they were making it burns you or something if you make it wrong. But generally I come out as pro slime, pro ooze, pro GAC.
I remember making that stuff as a kid, I would make concoctions to make it. Oh, it's so cool if it's neon, right?
Well, I mean, Nickelodeon famously made a whole. Yeah, they got a lot of mileage out of that.
I showed Sam the broadcast that they did on Nickelodeon for that NFL game where slime came out of the end zone when and Sam was really deeply disturbed. He was like, "This is indoctrinating kids, whatever."
To be pro slime.
Yeah.
I grew up in the heyday of Nickelodeon. It's like sliming people. I miss that. I miss Double Dare 2000. It's probably problematic for some way I don't understand, but no, I miss when they used to just like, you know, bring Jonah Hill up on stage and they would just like, oh, here's your blimp slime. That would be the only reason to watch like a game show.
I mean,
a game show or reward show.
Zac Efron would take his shirt off and he would win a big surfboard for like hottest like teen idol or whatever. I mean, that was big for me. Anyway,
that was a little bit after.
Do you remember GAC? Nickelodeon GAC?
No.
It was like their like own version of like slime they started to sell, and it was called GAC.
What was the name of the show on Nickelodeon where you would win prizes and it was a game show?
Was it Guts?
There were a lot of game shows on Nickelodeon. Double Dare, Legends of the Hidden Temple, Nick Arcade.
Might have been Nick Arcade. Whatever. My friend was on in like 3rd grade and she won a bike.
I was just watching Nick Arcade. That is a deep cut. That game show was bad because it came out not only as like not really a slime one, but it came out at the sort of beginning of like home video game consoles. So it's all about like video games, and it's like the most terrible graphics.
That one though. I mean, now I'm gonna look at the YouTube chat to see if anybody's saying anything about it. Anyway,
I really liked Nick Arcade. It was my favorite show, and they never showed it. It was like rarely on. Like you had to wake up.
You can watch it now online. I totally forgot at the
Slime Time Live. Slime Time Live.
Oh, the live one. I remember that too. That was like their TRL, but for slime.
Mm-hmm.
Wild and Crazy Kids was a good one. Do you remember that?
I remember Guts. I remember Nick Game and Sports, Nick Gas, Guts, because they had the aggro crag at the end,
right,
where like all of the little kids had to climb the aggro crag. They sucked at the aggro crag.
The one
I was big into Wild and Crazy Kids, though. I really wanted to. That was like a game show I wanted to be on when I was a kid, and I guess I didn't get. It didn't last long enough for me to get old enough to be on Wild and Crazy Kids.
Best was Legends of the Hidden Temple.
They brought that back, didn't they?
Shouldn't have done that. You can't, because it can never work. But or bring it back, and be as magical, like with the temple that talks, and like all the different types of teams that they had, like the parrot and the monkey and stuff like that. That shit was awesome.
My favorite was Figure It Out and Figure It Out Wild Style, where they had the hosts of All That, like the sketch artists from All That, like Lori Beth Ginsburg, and like the rest of them, like try to answer or fill in the blank questions about like animals or animal facts. That was a good one.
Figure It Out. Yeah, that's right.
With the big head.
I used to have a friend who, what was the host of that? There's a woman.
Oh my God.
Olympian. And my friend had a giant crush on her in like 4th grade. I forget what her name is.
And just to maybe
Summer Sanders. Sorry.
Yes, I remember him. Honestly, we made fun of him because he said.
Wait, her name was Summer. Did every Nickelodeon game show host have to have the name Summer in their name? Because wasn't the
Mark
their
Summers.
big host Mark Summers? Right.
No, he had a big crush on Summer Sanders.
That friend who won the bike on Slime Time Live is the one that almost gave me COVID. So we're all in.
What a life she's had.
I know. We've been friends for many years. That was it's all coming around full circle. Let's read some comments here. Dago Lefty, Emma, your guest put some things in perspective. I think we sometimes think we're uniquely extraordinary in uniquely extraordinary times with psychos like Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene in positions of government. Turns out we've always had batshit crazy ideologues in our government. Still don't know if this gives me more or less anxiety about the future of our country. I do think, we've had people write in and be like, how can I have hope for the future? Should I bring kids into this world with climate change? And, it's up to you to make that decision. But I do think sometimes when we have like a lack of historical understanding, it's easy to see our times as siloed and isolated, and it doesn't give us perspective.
I think, like these sort of conspiracies, like they go back. I was reading about, back for as long as you can really look at these things, but like look at Bacon's Rebellion. There was conspiracies that like the guy was gonna Berkeley governor was gonna raise taxes so much that if you couldn't pay your tobacco tax, he was just gonna take your bed and stuff like that. Just like crazy theories that were not based in reality, but like to try to whip up fear. It's pretty timeless. I think for me personally, I think it helps you to not get so depressed at the state of the world, because it is like it is always bad. And frankly, now our ability to verify things over space and time is better than it has ever been, as opposed to like, back in like the 1600s, what do you ask your priest about, like a fact or something like that? Like, there are bad things about the current media environment, and obviously like QAnon is a great symptom of that, but there are certain positives too, and I think like it could always be worse.
Right.
If you guys want some good news, I could bring you some good news today, and we could possibly segue this into a clip I see on the sound sheet. Sure. But have you guys heard that Steven Crowder has received his second strike from YouTube? He is suspended for 2 weeks, which means that's the end of Steven Crowder on YouTube for the rest of this year. And if he receives one more strike, then goodbye, Crowder. Well, one more strike within a 90-day period, then that is goodbye for Crowder for good. I
think he wants to get banned on some level.
Oh yeah, no, he's self-canceling now, so he can get a deal at like Rumble or whatever, like the app du jour is. But like,
he's already streaming on Rumble though, and he's got like over 5.5 million subscribers on YouTube. I don't know. I feel like that'd be a big hit to take. Honestly, I don't think whatever short-term press you'd get from that would make up for 5.5 million subscribers he's gonna lose, to be honest. I mean, he's got a really big channel.
It is a big channel.
I'm not saying he's actively trying to. I'm just saying he wants to court that audience, and he'll push it to the limit. And if he gets banned, then it's like a whole new.
Well, he might see the writing
frontier
on the wall and just kind of like, what is this most recent ban over, Binder? Do you know?
Well, I looked into it because the YouTube obviously doesn't tell you. Like he even posted the message he received, like the email he received from YouTube notifying him about the strike. It just says that he broke his hate speech policy. And then when I reached out to YouTube, they told me that it was over repeated targeting of people in the LGBTQ community. And so I viewed the removed live stream episode he did that obviously received the strike because it's no longer up. And it's also mentioned in that email that he shared. And I watched the whole episode, unfortunately for me. And from what it appears, one of two segments, possibly both, would have fit that description of targeting the LGBT community. And that is, one, he started the episode with a music video to a holiday parody song, which is like a country singer singing about running into an ex-girlfriend who, surprise, surprise, guys, transitioned into being a transgender man. And that's what that whole song and music video is about. And then later on, they discussed the J.K. Rowling tweet where she got all upset about the fact that police in, I believe, Scotland are going to start logging rapists as their preferred, gender identity. Which obviously J.K. Rowling then went ahead and tweeted some very anti-trans stuff, which Crowder and his crew had a field day with.
Well, then let's talk about Crowder. We can get to that clip if you'd like, Matt.
Yeah, let's do it, because might be the last time we hear from Crowder for the year.
Yeah, so Crowder, as Matt just laid out, has now received his second strike from YouTube and is skating on thin ice. But he has to brand himself not just as a belligerent racist and as somebody who seems to have a very open and uncomfortable relationship with his own sexuality and his own presentation of masculinity. No. He also has to join the COVID denial crowd, but put a comedic twist on it. Here he is floating the idea of hosting Omicron parties because conservatives now think it's so awesome to purposefully get COVID.
But I might have Omnicorp.
Right. Yeah, it's a pandemic.
I don't know what it is. I normally get a sinus infection this time of year, so I got a little bit of pressure right here.
Mm-hmm.
And but I still look good, and that's really all that matters.
Dung, 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 dung. Wait, is that Vanilla Ice, or is it yes to both? Okay,
it's Bowie.
It's not true. It was original.
Yeah. Under pressure.
It was Bowie and Queen.
Oh my
Yes.
Oh, it was Queen.
Yes,
Queen.
All right. Before we move on,
And dangled out of a window by
this mentally unstable. Let me know what you. Hey, you guys gonna have an Omicron party? I think we should have an Omicron party.
Yeah.
Throw a party with as many people as humanly possible.
Sharing is caring.
Lick a popsicle stick, do popsicle sticks, spit brothers.
What are we, 5 again?
Why? Because this is the United States of America. I love how this, no, the unvaccinated only kill themselves. Great. Let me commit I wrote my suicide letter out. I wrote it out, and I said, Gerald gets nothing. He gets my old crappy boombox, but it doesn't work.
A boombox?
But I wrote, look, there is a 0.004% chance of this working, and unfortunately, it's set at a timed release on my computer that goes out as an automatic send, and I just said horrible things.
Well, you should probably call that.
Things I can't take back. Skunked again by Omicron.
The show is so bad. Like, just put aside whatever they're even talking about, whatever topic of the day, whether it's this obsession with transgender people or trying to spread bullshit about COVID or whatever they're talking about in any given day. It's just such a bad show. Like, unfunny. Just their banter isn't interesting. It isn't even delivered smoothly. Yeah. I mean, it's just horrible content, just really bad stuff.
And in some ways, I think you're right, Matt, and that's kind of not necessarily the point, but that's the draw of being one of these like right-wing comedian types like Owen Benjamin, where there's such a dearth of comedians who align themselves with the far right, forgetting like neoliberal or just generally like centrist comedians or whatever SNL is doing nowadays. There are just so few of those like, IDW far right adjacent comedians that they're just desperate to draw any of them in, to give themselves the illusion that they have like a holistic, like well-rounded culture and it's not just grievance. And so, all of his like terrible skits are received way more warmly because that's the only content out there.
But it's not even a skit. Like, as Matt was saying, I mean, them just riffing on whether Under Pressure was by Queen or not.
Oh, not that part. I mean, his other like terrible, like, characters he plays, like his like racist Asian like delivery guy or something. I think he has one. Oh, go ahead.
7 different characters where he gets to dress up like a woman. I mean, there's a variety of those, and none of those are funny either.
It's very 2003. Like, I mean, honestly, it's very like Joanna Man, a lot of his jokes. And you're like, okay, well, it's 2021 now. You gotta like evolve a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. That, I guess, was the second day in a row that he floated these Omicron parties. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's the new thing.
You guys covered it yesterday?
Yeah, it sounded like almost an identical clip, but it was a different one.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're really hanging their hat on that.
So. I mean, this is the same old like anti-vaxxer conspiratorial bullshit that's existed well before COVID. I remember hearing many, many years ago, like about, and this is something that was typically connected with like, more sort of like hippies than conservatives, where you would hold parties to get your children together to specifically get your children sick with like whatever, chicken pox or whatever, just so you wouldn't have to get vaccinated or whatever they were trying to avoid, or whatever crazy beliefs they had in terms of why getting your child sick all at the same time together would be good for them. It's like the same old shit rehashed. They're not even original when it comes to their own bad ideas.
Well, I mean,
but
no, the idea that I think that there is a conservative strain of thinking that is obsessed with things only being natural, and they decide what's natural and what's not. And that's why there's like that anti-vaccine contingent, right? Because a disease is natural, a virus is natural, and if it comes into you, well, that's, I guess, what God intended or what was supposed to happen. Like, ignoring the fact that there has been a long trail of blood throughout history of, say, Europeans bringing diseases over to different nations and wiping out millions of people and certain populations. Like, the fact that we have gotten to a point where we can mitigate that, they don't have the historical understanding or like the actual curiosity to look into it, and that's like, I mean, that's also why they're they attack trans people, right? It's a way to say, oh, this is unnatural, and like leftists are taking us away from the way that society should be as God intended, organized.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think both you made really important points. Just to address the one in order, Matt's and then Emma's. I think that there is that genealogy of like folk medicine that comes from like suburban 1950s as like Leave It to Beaver. We're going to have a chickenpox party and make sure all our kids are exposed, so X, Y, and Z doesn't happen later in life or whatever. But it's brushing up with a lot of a newer, maybe I don't know how what you could like assign it to, but like this idea amongst the right of like politics is triggering liberals. And so much of their politics now involves like actively going out of their way to not necessarily just not get vaccinated or not wear a mask, but to constantly rub it in the face of people who feel as though that that's what they should be doing because that's, epidemiology. And, back in, the previous pre-COVID anti-vaxxers that weren't so enmeshed with this kind of trigger to lib online right-wing blogosphere or whatever, they were involved in anti-vaxxer practices in their own little community, but it felt much less like, for the most part, they were as interested in doing these kinds of performative actions that by necessity, because it's an airborne disease, inherently make them more, likely to get disease, more likely to get infected or infect others. Like they go out of their way to make sure that they're having these like pox parties and going unmasked to the club. It's like it's just the worst aspects of both coming into one thing together. And then to Emma's point, I think at the most basic level, they don't necessarily have an interest in American history to like where this our how any of our progress has been made, because it's inherently anti-conservative. It inherently involves like the American government or, in the most basic sense, but like, it inherently involves like the American government stepping in and like funding vaccine research or like, mandating things. And so you have to adopt a very high school C in history level understanding of history, and also a very high school C level understanding of science and biology in order to, continue to believe in these myths that are being constantly, eroded by both science and just like people doing that work at levels beyond like high school.
Right.
Exactly. All right, let's take a call or two. Matt, if you could find.
Yeah, let's go to the phones. Let's take first person on the line here is 509. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
I'm Casey Lee from Spokane, Washington.
Hey, how you doing? What would you like to talk about?
I wanted to bring up what I think should be one of the biggest stories, but no one seems to be talking about how the Fed's monetary policy affecting inflation. Everyone's talking about inflation lately.
Sure.
They've printed $7 trillion over the last 2 years, but no one seems to care.
Well, printing money isn't like inherently bad. I mean, it's a necessary thing for the government to do in terms of keeping a healthy economy at times.
That's whether it's inherently bad is a different story, but it's the sheer amount. It's unprecedented. The amount.
It is unprecedented.
The QE won't. Yeah,
it's true. We're in a new sort of era where the government is underwriting basically corporate America. It's a problem. Not because of the money is being created, but that it's also not being taxed back from the extremely large concentrations of wealth, in my opinion. That's the thing that I would emphasize is we need to start taxing both corporations and the wealthy extremely heavily, and have this more equitable. And like, I think certain types of inflation are, in any kind of transition from that, probably going to happen, and you just got to use the government to make sure that like, people's necessities are met as we're doing it, I think.
Let me ask you what you have heard about the housing market bubble causes.
Well, how about you give your thesis?
All right. Well, starting in March of 2020, the Fed starts their buying of mortgage-backed securities and bonds, and they keep buying. They're still buying. So it's $7 trillion that's over that time that just needs to be invested elsewhere. Immediately, this stock market, but as investors think that inflation is coming, then they can invest in things that are safe from inflation, such as housing and commodities, which, as those prices increase, becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
we're seeing.
I think there is a problem in that, like, I think the government spending was necessary, frankly, during, like, for instance, the financial crisis. But we have the problem where we rely on, like you said, investors, which is, frankly, not the wisest class of people in human history, in my opinion. And we rely on them and their speculation to deal with all this money that we've created out there. And I think it's a problem with relying on, like, speculative capitalism to address all of society's needs. And I think it probably will create a problem, but ultimately, like, I think focusing on it as the government spending is just not quite the right way in on this.
I'm not sorry. Okay. I'm not talking about government. It's not government spending. It's the Federal Reserve buying up the government's debt.
Right, and then that, I think, like, everything from, like, the buying up of housing to cryptocurrency bubbles, like, it's all related, right? It's too much of this cash out there.
Exactly.
And I think that is going to be a problem that it you can only deal with, saying, like, by taxing those gains. And I would like to get to a society where, you know, we're talking about insider trading. I think it's fucking gross that passive income is such an important part of, you know, people making a living. It's fucking disgusting to me. And maybe that's because I haven't been a person that benefited from that, and, like, people that, you know, have to work into their 60s. But I think it's fucking gross, and it's no way, in my opinion, to structure society.
Thanks for the call.
All right, thanks for taking my call.
Cryptocurrency will solve that, Matt.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's go to 301. What's your name? Where are you calling from? 301. What's your name? Where are you calling from? All right. Looks like we lost them. Call back and I'll take your call.
I get these calls from the blockchain.
Yeah. Let's go here then. Let's take 646. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, this is me.
This is you. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is Lindsey Graham. How y'all doing today?
This is who?
Lindsey Graham.
Lindsey Graham, as in the senator from South Carolina?
That's the one y'all like to call Lady G, and I got a bone to pick with y'all.
Okay, let's see how this goes, Lindsey.
I have an issue with how y'all like to make fun of me for going to that Trump dinner and then just getting all that free food. I mean, who am I to turn out some free food? I mean, are y'all gonna do it?
I would definitely take up any offer of free food. I'll guarantee you that much. So I'm with you there so far, Senator Graham.
Yeah. That's not really the part we have.
Okay. I couldn't keep that together. I'm sorry, guys. Anyways,
you tried.
Now this will make a this will make a shit run dragon for the chat. I'm trying very hard not to laugh hysterically at work, but I just wanted to call and see how y'all were doing. I do have I was going to ask a little something.
Who is this actually?
Oh yeah, what's your name for real?
This is Omega Shenron from the chat.
Hey, all right, cool. Where are you from?
New York.
Oh, okay, cool. Go ahead.
Yeah, anyhow, I was just gonna ask, how do you guys feel about do you really feel like at all that that Eric Adams is gonna be like any good going forward, considering all the you brought up crypto, Matt, all the crypto nonsense that he's like touting? Do you really think he's gonna is he gonna be as inept as say Joe Biden is, or is he gonna be as bad as people think?
Oh, I think he's gonna be
the whole Pepper thing.
Eric Adams.
Yeah, in terms of is he going to be any? Let's take your first question. Is he going to be any good? No. Is he going to be inept like Joe Biden or everything bad we can possibly imagine? I think the latter. I think he is going to be real trouble. I think he's not going to be a very good mayor. I think he's going to easily, I don't even want to say make concessions because I don't believe he's conceding anything. I think this is actually his views. I think he's a fairly right-wing individual on many things. He clearly will be a friend of the NYPD, which is a problem.
Yeah, pull it if you could. I sent it in the chat just to talk about Eric Adams really quickly.
I saw that.
Yeah, but like you can keep going, Matt. Sorry.
No, go. Why don't you go ahead? Go ahead. I want to hear from everybody here.
So this is like just in terms of Eric Adams. This is Eric Adams. He introduced the new NYPD commissioner in front of a mural that had paintings of Malcolm X, Nat Turner, Angela Davis, Huey Newton, and Asante Shakur. I mean, like. I joked on Twitter, as an example of the kind of people they'll plant evidence on. But like also, I mean, that's what he's going to do. He's going to be, when it comes to his dealings with cops, given his history, he's going to be a part of the reestablishment of the NYPD and like working in tandem with them, in my opinion. And also like just in that instance, at least, completely defanging and watering down the history of like the important people in that mural. And I will also guess, if you want to check out some of David Friedlander's work on Eric Adams, there is a lot there that he could be investigated for. I think that his like level of sloppiness with his corruption and is going to be a problem for him. There could be, I think, some real scandals about like him not reporting some real estate holdings, some of the shady stuff he said he didn't live. He lives in one place, but he doesn't necessarily live there. There were not taxes paid on some of the properties that he that he owns allegedly, and.
Oh, he recently took a free flight from some crypto millionaire to some like resort. I forget which island.
Yeah, it was in Puerto Rico. Yeah,
it was in Puerto Rico for some like crypto convention or whatever. And he was claiming that it was something. His press people were saying it was his own personal time. It was his vacation. He used his own resources to pay for the trip. And then it comes out that he's taking freebies from people with real investment here in New York City to try to make this, as Eric Adams is suddenly saying after his election, he wants to make New York City the cryptocurrency capital of the world. You don't think all these people throwing freebies at him have anything to do with that? When did Eric Adams talk about crypto before any of this?
I mean, he's talking about crypto because he's a true.
Yeah, the other thing, the fact that he said he was taking a whole ass check for like in crypto, and I'm like, okay, buddy, yeah, no. It's like he's like, no, I'm sorry. This is like, it's nonsense, and it's bad enough that East River Park is getting demolished and that people leapfrogged and did things improperly in order to get that taken care of. It's too late now because they're in the process of starting that, but. They in the city council, Carlina Rivera, by the way, piece of shit, who, by the way, I will tell you this as a person who knows, she has a husband that has like these luxury apartments, and her ass lived in a rent controlled unit and still was like, oh, like, no. It's like, you freaking pulled the wool over. She pulled kind of a Kristen Cinema type move, but in regards to like more of a local level type of thing. And I'm like, this is seriously disappointing, because it's like don't try to put yourself out there like a person of the neighborhood or the people, whatever, and all these little meetings and shit. It's like it really just shits on everybody and makes us feel stupid, and it makes us feel even more stupid that like with this crappy election, because only about a million people turned out, and then it's like it crushes your faith in your own city almost. And that and the Cheesecake Factory thing, which happened not too far from where I grew up, which is like, is Queens like the second Florida of New York next to Staten Island? What is this?
What, the Cheesecake Factory like anti-vax thing?
Yeah.
Queens is where all cops live, apparently, in Staten Island, obviously. Well, parts of Queens. That's rude. I shouldn't say all of Queens, because obviously Matt lives in Queens as well.
I mean, a lot of cops don't even live in the city at all. A lot of them live in Long Island.
That was what I was
like
gonna,
Westchester. Yeah.
That was what I was going to say in response to the caller. A great username, by the way, caller. Thank you for your question. You know, in the end of the day, like Eric Adams is like an NYPD cop. And so a lot of things that are wrong with him are just like magnified versions of things that are wrong with NYPD cops. The fact that he does not live in the city, or rather that he might not live in the city and is in fact commuting and pretending to in order to run for mayor or whatever that was about. You know, the fact that he's corrupt. You know, his weird little like, I forgot the thing he said about that concert where he said his favorite concert was the one where that guy almost died at. Like, there's just like elements of Eric Adams that I think that, you know, are unique to him. And then some of them are just like, well, he's actually just a cop. He's a New York City police department officer cop. And we're going to be able to see what that means to or rather people outside of the city are going to be able to see what that means. And it also occurs to me that they were in front of that mural because the new NYPD commissioner is like that Black woman. So they were touting that too as part of this, you know, Eric Adams' new diverse, you know, city for crypto and Black cops.
That's the interesting thing about this is how that he is the sort of representative of common sense cop reform, that a sort of repudiation of like the last year's movements that I think that a big part of the Democratic Party wants to move towards. And now, you know, it's not de Blasio, it's him, and we'll see how his model works. And I don't expect it to really deliver.
Yeah, I can't expect that it will deliver, but I think that the identity.
I heard he was going to bring back stop and frisk.
That would be I mean, I don't know. Like, the thing about it is that there were all those core challenges under Bloomberg. Maybe that might deter Adams from going down that road, but I don't know. But
I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
He's a real oddball. Like, I don't think you can really place what this guy's gonna do because he's got some like he doesn't have like a straightforward, like streamlined ideology. He's all over the place. But at his core, he's a former cop who has some pretty conservative views.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
he is the guy who in like, what was it, like 10 or 15 years ago, ran a complete campaign in Brooklyn when he was a state senator with taking out billboards and everything, telling young people to pick up their pants and wear a belt, like stop wearing their pants off of their, like, you know, below their hips or whatever, like ridiculous.
ran an ad like about how where you could look for drugs in your kid's bedroom.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I think that goes to Matt's point, old Matt. I mean, well, no, new Matt, not old Matt. About like he's, you know, presented as this kind of common sense middle ground between like Black Lives Matters and a violent police state, just by nature of being like a Black cop. He's not the perfect like vehicle for that because he is so weird. Obviously, he's no Carl Winslow in terms of his like demeanor or ability to project that kind of like, you know, even keeled sort of granddad wisdom. But, you know, he does present him a challenge, I think, for people who are interested in police reform, prison abolition, police abolition, in the sense that for a large portion of Americans, including liberals, this idea of a Black cop short circuits them. Like, how can a Black cop be racist? And, you know, that might make him a more effective vehicle, or someone like him a more effective vehicle for getting stuff like stop and frisk, you know, repassed over, let's say, your everyday average, you know, Mayor Bloomberg.
But we appreciate the call, though. We got to let you go.
Yeah, thanks for the call.
No problem, guys. Yeah, no problem.
Like talking about Eric Adams and his weirdness.
He's so weird. I'm gonna read some. Let's read some IMs. Todd Clorox. Eric Adams has said that he's bringing solitary confinement back to Rikers.
Like, that seems like such a bizarre thing to just bring up. First of all, I highly doubt, like, I'm sure the official position is that it's went away, but based on all the different deaths that have been happening over the years at Rikers, to individuals who are way too young to just be spontaneously dying, I'm going to assume that conditions are pretty close to what solitary confinement would do to someone mentally, emotionally, and physically to begin with. So bringing it back is basically just bringing it back all in name only, it seems.
Well, yeah, I mean, absolutely, Matt, because we know that really the media will present a, you know, the media in quotes, like in scare quotes, the way they put like critical race theory, will present a narrative about crime in America that is so radically divorced from the way crime is treated, the way punishments are doled out, the way that our prison industrial complex works, that just gives this illusion that like crime is going up in response to stuff like this. Like, oh, well, they removed solitary from Rikers, or they closed Rikers, and suddenly crime in the city is rising like exponentially, when in reality, Rikers did not close. And also like the mild public concessions that were made were rolled back. Like the few police departments that lost some money, many of them received even more money once people's eyes were turned away. But we still receive those same types of articles regarding how crime has been rising in reaction to a fake police defunding, fake prison defanging.
Right. Maddie Moron, Biden's decision to ramp up sanctions against the DPRK is really disgusting, and every bit as indefensible as increasing sanctions against Cuba. The continued American occupation of the Korean Peninsula is the legacy of one of our great state crimes in the 20th century. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, Tim Sharrock is the good follow for SHORROCK on American politics in South Korea, particularly.
All right, I will throw him a follow right now. Jennifer from St. Louis. Children used to be deliberately exposed to the inevitable diseases, chickenpox, measles, etc., before there were immunizations in order to let the child get sick so parents didn't have to wait for it to happen at some unknown time. Yeah, and then vaccines happened, and we don't necessarily have to do that.
Yeah, wait, like... But we've been vaccinating people for like 400 years.
Yeah.
Like, we're inoculating people for like a long-ass time.
Another Matt says, watching Crowder try to offend with such lame comedy reminds me of that episode of Seinfeld where Jerry rats out the dentist for converting to Judaism for the jokes, and the priest asks, "And this offends you as a Jewish person?" To which Jerry responds, "No, it offends me as a comedian." I don't know if I've seen that one. We can't get back into the Seinfeld debate, or people, I mean,
What's the deal with dentists?
I think the dentist in Seinfeld is Bryan Cranston, though. Like the consistent dentist is always Bryan Cranston from Malcolm in the Middle, obviously, and Breaking Bad.
Like I was watching the episode the other day where Skylar from Breaking Bad is like Jerry's girlfriend at the time, or Courtney Cox is in it too. Like it's fun when you see those little yeah, right. Come Shower with Crowder says he finally admits what everyone already knows in that timed release. I don't know what that is in reference to.
Yeah, don't quit follow.
Shane from Canada, I am sorry for all the Canadian conservatives who keep getting out of the country somehow and bothering y'all. Crowder, I think he means. Communist Dog says, Comrade Emma, now that SCOTUS has upheld the Texas abortion law allowing persons with no standing to sue, should we all be suing Fox News for all the people they have killed and are still killing with their COVID-19 propaganda, death by a million lawsuits? I mean, that's what the Democrats have to do, that if like this Texas law stands for as long as it's supposed to. I mean,
California's already made the move to make it for people to be able to sue people who create like the ghost guns, like the printed guns. Yes. And apparently, according to New York Attorney General Tisha James, she's looking into doing that same thing here in New York, where I'm honestly not that familiar with exactly what California's rolled out, but it's supposed to be based exactly on the Texas abortion law, but for ghost guns and people who put out like illegal, unofficial ways to like get and manufacture those sort of weapons.
You got to create your own bounty system if they're going to keep trying this. This is why I'm in favor of, until gerrymandering gets overturned, or hopefully does, what they're doing in Illinois, I believe, with the Democrats gerrymandering in their favor. Go all in. Sam's Magic Wand. Great questions, Emma. Must have been a great feeling when he said he wished he included your CRT point in his book, and I would know a thing or two about great feelings. I don't know what that means.
Weird sauce on a couple of the IMs.
Because their username is Sam's Magic Wand. I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
What was the discussion? You have to turn your mic on, Bradley.
So there's Magic Wand discussion. We can maybe probably don't want to discuss.
I wish I didn't know. Sam Stone, Zoomer Emma's trying to think of Slime Time Live. All right, cool. All right, let's do a little bit more, some more clips.
Let's do that technology one.
Oh, the wait, what do you mean?
The drone.
Oh, the drone one. Okay, cool. So, The Intercept had an article a few days ago about. Wait, this is the same one I sent earlier.
Number
in the
12, it looks like. I think that's the.
Right. So The Intercept had a piece earlier in the week about this Peter Thiel fellow who is basically got funding from Thiel's organization in order to help his startup grow. He was branded as a social impact investor in the wake of the Las Vegas mass shooting because he lent his robot technology to cops who were investigating that shooting, which we still do not have much clarity on, by the way, but that's beside the point. So, like, when you get branded as such, he was featured in Forbes' 30 Under 30 for social impact. Everybody's clapping him on the back. I mean,
he used the Las Vegas thing as a marketing opportunity.
And he was 18 years old, so he's one of those freaks who is trying to make it in the tech world, and he presented himself as like one of the moral guys who's going to help track down this mass shooter. However, his pitch that was recently uncovered by immigrant rights group Magente, and now it was included in this Intercept piece as well, doesn't necessarily present him as the pro-human rights tech guy that he tried to portray himself as. Again, this is somebody who is in the Peter Thiel world and the kind of technology that Thiel is promoting. He proposed a wall of drones, I believe he called it, along the southern border to the Trump administration. Drones that would tase people trying to cross the border. Here is his little pitch that was included in the Intercept piece on this.
This is one of the most desolate parts of our southern border. Every year, over $100 billion worth of narcotics and 500,000 people flow through areas just like this one. There's no wall here, and it probably wouldn't work anyway because of the rough terrain and eminent domain issues. But there is a solution. This is the Brink drone, and it is just one part of a much larger system designed to fully secure the US-Mexico border. It's called the Wall of Drones. Each drone in the wall starts its day in a base station, where it's recharged using solar power. Then, the drone automatically takes off and goes on.
So people can just cross the border at night then? It's problem solved.
Solar power doesn't work at night.
Well, he said they have to they start their day, so there is an end to their shift, which means there's apparently a time when they're not being run.
One has to assume that the taser robot drones have overlapping shifts, like, you know, guards at a museum. Although I will say it's very distracting how much he looks like the actor Simon Farnaby. I don't know, no one's going to know who that is besides me and like one person watching, but like, yeah, he looks just like that guy.
I mean, he has
Simon
the hair.
Farnaby?
It's like Jonah Hill's haircut from Superbad, but that's really all.
Right. This guy, yes, he looks like him. He got the hair though. He doesn't really have the face though, but yeah.
It is a Jonah Hill though. I mean, can we connect these things to like oil derrick? Like, what's with this candy ass solar power we're using on this stuff?
I know, right? Yeah, like maybe that's why the Trump administration didn't go for it.
Who is this weirdo?
Yeah, I know. He wants to use the sun to power these drones.
Anyway, we got to see the how like they're armed.
Yeah, keep going.
Wall starts its day in a base station, where it's recharged using solar power. Then, the drone automatically takes off and goes on patrol towards the next base station in the line. It follows a pre-programmed flight path and uses its high-definition camera and thermal imager to look for intruders. When the drone detects an intruder, control of the drone is shifted to a human operator at a nearby border control office. Then, the controller pilots the aircraft down and interrogates the suspicious person.
This is U.S. Border Patrol. Identify yourself.
My name's Jose.
What are you doing out here?
Taking walk.
Do you have any identification on hand?
That's identification.
Stop moving your traffic gun or you will be paid.
He should have just shot, honestly. Should have came out blasting. That was it.
Oh my God.
After border agents arrive and the perpetrator is safely restrained, the drone flies off to complete its patrol. So, the wall of drones is made up of hundreds of drones and base stations like these, strategically placed along the border. It can actively respond to threats, monitor the whole border with video surveillance, and physically prevent criminals from entering the United States. It's also just about 300 times less expensive than a physical wall, and it can be implemented in much less time. Wall of drones technology can also be used to secure prisons, oil pipelines, data centers, and many other sensitive locations. In short, Brink is the future of international and domestic border control. For more information, please go to brinkdrones.com.
Do you need one of those giant friggin' table machines for each drone? That was one drone sitting in there. I was expecting a whole bunch to fly out. That doesn't seem very.
No, the drone out of there and then flies to the next one as the other one replaces the other one. I mean, I get that part of it, I guess, but
if you're crossing the border, you just need to
shoot it. Shoot the drone.
Shoot the drone. Well, he had the gun, and
yes,
remember?
Why would you threaten the drone?
The drone. Right?
Yeah.
Pretty easy to pull the trigger on a non-living robot. I mean, come on.
Kill you, drone.
Let's just point out like why they needed that in the script, because if the guy said, "I'm Jose, I'm up for a walk," and didn't pull out the gun and then was tased, it would have looked even worse than the still dystopian cartoon that it looked like.
Yeah, nice touch naming himself as Jose there.
Exactly, and it honestly looks like something out of like some sort of like 2003 spoof on America like movie.
I just want to congratulate.
Also, no, go ahead.
I was going to say, I want to applaud them for showing restraint in their actor not being like an MS-13 style, like, just literally tatted up like a Mexican guy. Just like they really showed restraint by just naming him Jose, and we should acknowledge that because they could have made it way more racist.
But he was wearing glasses, so kind of scary.
Also, definitely nothing will go wrong with like the audio, the very important audio aspect of this. Like, no way the transmission won't be good, and they'll ask for this person to show identification, and they'll be talking to you to show that they are allowed to be there. And there's some sort of, I don't know, static or white noise, and you can't hear. And all of a sudden you're tasing a completely unarmed, innocent person. I mean, ridiculous, ridiculous.
It just seems like this is like a piece of evidence that a lot of what we've been told about like foreign policy, like drone warfare and surveillance and stuff like that, like being dichotomous with like domestic policy, it was a joke, obviously, but you can really see in the way we have militarized the border and the technology we have adopted for the border and for a few other like politically problematic populations in America, how we're just slowly infusing some of these like more and more weapon technologies that were supposed to stay in areas of like the Middle East, which they don't belong either, obviously, are just coming home. Like, I like the places that he named where this kind of technology will be needed. It's like, oh yeah, the Mexican-American border, or pipelines where there might be protesters, or any number of places where there might be unrest domestically that might, be politically unadvantageous. It's like, it's a very clear signal that we're moving a lot of these more severe and more like dystopian technology systems back home, and it all took was like a few decades after they were launched overseas.
Tiger swans like licking their lips when they're seeing that kind of stuff.
I haven't been able to get Peter Thiel on the phone for my invention, which is a drone that basically hovers around executive suites and tases owners of businesses when they avail of undocumented labor or engage in wage theft.
Could we not use this wall of drones to like deliver tests to all Americans, or like food or something, like in order to like prevent contact between people infected with COVID or not? Like, are there not bigger issues that this technology might be able to solve more effectively?
To be fair to Blake Resnick, the Peter Thiel fellow, that pitch likely wouldn't have gone over well with Donald Trump, if that's what this video was for.
Yeah, that's the point, right? Like, this was meant to be for Donald Trump, but I like to imagine the pitch meeting where he's like, but it's not a physical wall. It doesn't have an actual moat with alligators in front of it. It's just
no deal.
Yeah, honestly, I think that. Go ahead.
No, go on.
I was gonna say, I think this pitch is more like a geared towards Democrats, like in their technocratic style. Like, we're not gonna have a real wall. We're gonna have a digital wall. We're gonna have like a wall of drones, and it's gonna be a lot more humane because people in America won't have to feel like there's a wall dividing them from Mexico, which they should be allowed to go in. The drones will be more like Ed 09 from RoboCop. They'll be able to tell who it is, who's not undocumented worker quite easily, and it won't, ruin your view. So it feels much more like out of sight, out of mind problem, which is, I think, more of a Democrat style of like policing the border. He should have, geared it more towards, painted the drones with like an LGBTQ flag, add like a BLM sticker to the bottom of it, and we just pitch it right to like Kamala Harris.
No, you're absolutely right. Like, we need to make sure that Eric Adams does not hear about this technology because
yeah, that it's the robot dogs on the ground and the tasing drones in the air.
It's like, absolutely.
Yeah. Speaking of Eric Adams, Obamagate hotel plumber writes in, Eric Adams, to be clear about the property tax issue, is not that he failed to pay, but he actually paid more by failing to claim the homestead exemption in the Brooklyn apartment where he obviously doesn't live. That's not what I was talking about. He has properties that he rents, but maybe it is. I could have confused it. I did that interview on this topic like 4 to 5 months ago, and so some of those things get a little murky.
Hey, did you guys hear about Melania Trump's new project?
Well, we sure did. It's in our sound.
Oh, we got the sound clip. Do you want to get to that?
Sure. So we'll dive right in. Former First Lady Melania Trump is now a part of the hashtag crypto gang. She's on the blockchain and she's going hard with it. She's very excited about this new venture, which combines her passion for art and commitment to helping our nation's children fulfill their own unique American dream. Hashtag Melania NFT at melaniatrump.com. Now, Binder, fill us in. Is this going to help our nation's children fulfill their own unique American dream of being paid a starvation wage and then maybe blowing some of their money on something that's going to blow up in their face?
I mean, I don't know. Who knows what could happen with the Melania line of NFTs? I mean, look how Trump's own social media, new media company, which literally has not launched a single product. Look how they've completely ballooned on the stock market with their SPAC deal, where they basically combined with an existing shell company just so they could get on the stock market. And people have made, Trump himself has made something like $1 billion off of this, I believe. A lot of money, literally off a scam product. Well, it's got to be a scam because they're making money and nothing's even out there yet. People are just investing based on the Trump name, thinking that they're gonna. Who knows what they're thinking when they put money into that stock. But Melania Trump going the other route with NFTs. Non-fungible Trumps, perhaps this is what this stands for. I don't know. This is I mean, I don't know what more proof you need that this shit is all just one big grift when a Trump just openly dives right in. I mean, I don't think you need any more proof than that, to be honest.
No, Melania very sold on the need to decentralize finance, and that's really what this is about.
Right. I would love to see, did she release any of what these things look like? They're entitled Melania's Vision.
Melania coin.
Oh, and they go on sale. Oh, they go on sale today. Maybe there's some on the website. Let me check this. Does she have visuals as to what this crap looks like? Because I'm sure it'll be just as ugly as the cyberpunks and the Bored Apes.
When you said that she was starting a new venture, I thought she meant that she was going to like get into like Christmas decorating professionally, because this isn't the first year in a while we haven't been treated to her decorations, and I think that would have been a way better business venture.
Hers are better than
there's audio.
Hers are undeniably better than Biden's. Biden's Christmas decorations look like they're refilming Home Alone there. Hers at least had some kind of like stark aesthetic.
It looks like Easter.
Someone pull this up in the, I just dropped the link in the chat. Someone with a screen share. There's audio too, by the way. She recorded a little narration for it. It's amazing.
Didn't Coinbase like get hacked or something 2 days ago, and everyone's coin value went up to like the trillions for like 2 hours, and it was
there was a glitch with the source of where they grab how much certain crypto currencies are worth, and so people who held certain crypto logged into their account and found that they were multi-billionaires all of a sudden. Couldn't cash out and actually take that money, but on digital screens they were billionaires.
Yeah, I mean, I was reading an article about NFT, and I think, it really captured, even though it was more pro NFT than I am, the sentiment that like NFT is really a phenomenon that it exists entirely to manipulate a sense of FOMO that has been cultivated in a population from like years and years of like social media and like FOMO and like you only live once, and look at all you're missing out on, and look how much your friends, how much more fun you're having than they are, and you don't want to miss out on this next opportunity. And that's what it feels so much, I think. The grift is just so transparent for NFTs because it's so much more about like, well, what if you look stupid by not getting onto this one train that it might be the last train leaving the station for getting rich, and everyone else gets rich off of it. It's like, it's not so much about whether or not people can identify the grift in it, more so whether they think they're smart enough to overcome that with a few, I would say, cursory examinations of like a white paper and their own like sense of like what is and is not smart. It's very like geared towards a unique weakness in our current American population.
And it also feeds into like the only way that Americans kind of know how to feel empowered is by purchasing something, and so that's also like a way to tap into that. But Binder, here's the Melania Trump NFT website.
My vision is look forward with inspiration, strength, and courage.
Can you give that one more time? We want to get that so we can put it on the soundboard, this NFT sound. So just play one more time, please.
My vision is look forward with inspiration, strength, and courage.
Man,
what a beautiful vision! Oh, beautiful artwork to go through it with it.
I'm tearing up right now.
Who wouldn't spend hundreds of dollars on that? Not even artwork. Basically, the random characters that put that piece of artwork on the blockchain, so you basically have a receipt of ownership of that art, but not the actual ownership over the art. Beautiful.
God, people are dumb.
Yeah, I look forward like that. Thank you, Melania. Look forward to look forward to the price on this rising, so you can sell it to the next cash that you're actually after.
Clear pump and dump scam. Just another clear rug pull that people are going to get into, and then like get scammed by, and then like complain that there's not enough regulation in the industry that prides itself on having none.
The weird thing is the crypto grift does seem a little bit out of the league of where Trump would scam. Like, the crypto grift usually targets young people, and Trump's audience of gullible people, while certainly runs the gamut of generations, the people who throw down the big money into the Trump scams, like Trump University scams, sending all their money to various like fake Trump PACs or whatever, those tend to be older people. And I highly doubt they're figuring out how to trade NFTs and crypto. So they're really targeting it. Yeah, they're diversifying, but with this one, they're really targeting a very small, obscure niche in the MAGA world.
Well, there's a limited number of NFTs. That's what makes them so valuable.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's plenty of like younger MAGA types, though, that like, I mean, that is who's. Well, I don't want to say that. Like the crypto has a wide appeal, but like I get what you're saying, Binder, but I also think like it's the juiciest scam going. So of course Trump's gonna wet his beak a little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
Reading.
Want to go back to the phones?
Yeah. Let's do a call.
Let's go to 266. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Is this me?
This is you. What's your name? Where are you calling from? And you already sound really low, so if you could get a bit closer to your audio device, that'd be great.
Is this better?
Yes, much better.
Okay. My name's Ilya from Quebec.
Oh, hey, how you doing over there in Canada?
Yeah. So there's a sort of a law that passed a little while ago here called Bill 21, and what it does is forbid sort of public facing public servants to wear any kind of religious symbols. And so obviously yeah. So in sort of, well, in Quebec context, there's a lot of sort of
it's Islamophobic. Okay, I wasn't thinking of that.
Sentiment,
I was thinking like,
but yeah, so like, it definitely affects those kinds of like Muslims and Sikhs and things like that way more than anyone else. So there's a lot of sort of things going on. And recently there was a big story about a teacher being fired and stuff. And so like the current government is sort of very populist, but not necessarily in a sort of right or left, more just sort of pro-Quebec kind of way.
Well, they're taking cues maybe from, I mean, like the that's what France does with like is populist.
Exactly, yeah. And there's sort of historical context for it in Quebec, where in the 60s there was a big rejection of the Catholic Church and stuff. But nowadays it's sort of the people who still claim, talk about secularism like France are, kind of in a unholy alliance with basically, racists, I guess.
Mm. Well, I appreciate the call. Thanks for giving us an update on that.
Yeah, I assumed like, it was going to be something where it was like trying to stop, I don't know, some like right-wing Christian group from trying to push their beliefs in like a public school setting or something. And of course, I am wrong there. It's the worst case scenario of those type of laws, of course.
Let's
take another call.
Final call today.
All right, cool. Let's go back to the phones and let's take 347. What's your name? Where are you calling from? 347. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Looks like
that's
you're
me,
not
actually.
Well.
No.
All right, let's go to another call. Sorry, 347. Let's go to 850. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Is this you?
This is me. Yes. Is this you?
Sorry, sir. Hey, it is. This is a, let's see, second time caller, long time listener.
Love
Emma might remember me as a flippant Floridian foreskin. Brought up the nice circumcision conversation last time.
I'm sure Emma will never
something
forget
different to talk about this time. Yeah, something different to talk about this time.
I hope so. Yeah, let's go.
Number one, yeah. So on the drone wall, what they didn't show is at the end of the video, one of the guys actually claims asylum, and the drone escorts him to the immigration court. So, there is some good stuff that can happen. No, I was calling in two things. Number one, about 2 weeks ago, I guess you had an economist on that was talking about you guys got stuck basically where middle management comes in, and I guess who decides certain roles in the workforce. And it kind of likened back, I think the answer was in a previous interview you guys had about 6 months ago, where someone mentioned that the people in charge of making those rules and stipulations should have no idea what their place in the hierarchy is going to be while making it. And that's the only way I could think of where you could get around, I guess, possible corruption right off the bat, just during creation of that kind of economic system. The second thing was trying to, Sam's not on today, and unfortunately, I don't know if you guys are of as much of a legal mind as he is. I hear him called that quite a bit. But thinking about using, Texas laws to fully allow, abortions as they're written now, which basically, I guess the gist of it is, long story short, you wait for the baby to kick and then shoot it in self-defense. It's the only way I can think of that can happen. If your body is a temple, what's a temple but another man's castle? Castle doctrine could stand, and you're saying you can't retreat from a kicking baby. What are you supposed to do other than self?
Castle.
All right, appreciate it, man. You got you really.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, ooh, great last call.
Well,
Take
it really
care.
was. It really
Yeah,
was.
I thought it was good stuff.
I've been holding on to that for like 2 weeks. I'm glad you guys picked up.
10 out of 10. We're glad you were able to get it out.
You guys have fun. Thanks for everything.
Man.
Love you guys. Love the show. Yeah, miss Michael hardcore. Throwing that out there. I didn't get to last time. I think about him every day, basically. Still, just finished his book. It was on back order from the Zero Books publishers. It's great stuff. Truly miss the guy. Really do. But you guys, please keep up the good work. Love everything you do on all mediums, all platforms. Thanks for everything. For real.
Thank you.
Thanks for the call. All right, folks.
I accidentally refreshed again the IMs. So if you guys
I got some.
again.
Rob from Dedham. Looking forward to Trump's forthcoming book, The Art of the NFT. Sebastian, what was that?
I want the NFT of Trump. What NFT of Trump moment do you guys want? I want the NFT of Trump staring up into the eclipse.
If you had to pick one member of the Trump family to explain NFTs to you, which one would you pick?
For entertainment value, or
it's got to be Donald Trump. I mean,
you can pick whichever value you want. Like if you want to understand it, if you just want to laugh, like who do you think would provide the most value for the NFT bucks?
I bet Don Jr. has the best peg of like which one you want to buy to flip quickest because he seems the most online.
I've seen Don Jr. break something down on other reality TV shows, so I would agree. I think he's also pretty funny when it comes down to like not being very smart. So, you know.
That is very funny, but like trying to project confidence so desperately that his father possesses, but not necessarily understanding or having the charisma to do so.
I like the idea that like, yeah, he tried to pitch Trump on this NFT idea and like Trump's like, I don't know what that is. And then somebody else, just like a part of his staff is like, hey Trump, we should do an NFT. He's like, oh yeah, good idea.
I like the idea that like he showed Trump that like shitty NFT cartoon that's been making the rounds with all like the lazy apes and fucking lions in it, and like Trump has just been enthralled by like the monkeys because all of them contain like monkeys.
I want 10,000 computer-generated pieces of art that are all based on Ben Garrison's muscular Trump, with Trump in various different positions of doing things that he clearly cannot do in real life. I want like Trump as like a football star. I want Trump as a professional wrestler. Trump as like I don't know, all sorts of like manly, muscular, different Ben Garrison style Trumps. 10,000 of them computer generated, baby. That's the NFT project for me.
I think that you're right, though. That's just like that's just not going to reach your audience. You should put that shit on like the Home Shopping Network. If you put that like on QVC and just, call them stamps or like, memorial, not memorial, memorabilia from his presidency, you have a much better chance of making real money over like putting it online. Although I didn't know if it was in dollars and not like in one of those shitty currencies like Ethereum or like Doge or something. So I think they're kind of expecting to have more people who are less familiar with that currency. Though I would say I think NFTs, they are a great example of how like the argument that capitalism, especially free capitalism, quote unquote, breeds innovation is just such horseshit, because like 90% of NFTs are either scams or like blatant copies of more popular projects. And it's just like, that's just it. And there's never any real like argument to the counter of that. It's just like, oh, but that's just what the market wants.
Can we sample some of the Red Ape Family NFT cartoon before we head out, Bradley?
Sure.
If you just want to like go to like a random portion of this cartoon here.
Great. While you pull it up, I'll read some more IMs, I guess. Man Shovel says, I feel like Melania is devouring my soul with her weird photoshopped eyes. Yes, very, very odd piece of art alone. Then just mix it in the blender with NFTs and you get something even weirder.
It's like, the Mona Lisa was supposed to like the eyes follow you around the room. Melania's eyes don't really look like they're focused at any point in the room.
Yeah, I think they're like a little glazed over.
It's funny you bring up the Mona Lisa, because NFT people constantly use the Mona Lisa as like why people who mock NFT art are going to be wrong eventually, because apparently, according to them, and this is true history from what I understand as well. But like the Mona Lisa wasn't like really valued as like one of the like foremost works of art in the world until it was like stolen back in like decades ago or whatever. And then after it was recovered, then it got all this newfound fame and glory. I mean, it still was the Mona Lisa, but I mean, and they claim that that's going to happen with NFTs where people just don't understand it yet. And soon it will all, like the Bored Apes will be the Mona Lisa of the world.
Well, I mean, that's just like a fallacy of like time and being in the future and not realizing how many shitty paintings didn't make it. You know, it's easy to be like, oh, you go to a museum and like look at all of the, you know, Van Goghs of the world who like weren't popular in their time, and then like 30 years later or after they died, they were popular. It's like, yeah, but how many motherfuckers just died without ever making anything on the
You're going to cash in on this in what, 400 years or something like that, when people finally appreciate the cartoon, I don't know what, banana or whatever that you purchase?
Right. There are very few instances of like Banksy in the art world where the person is able to live at the same time as take in their success. Yeah. Usually artists like that, like fine artists, painters, sculptors, whatever, their glory days are after they died, and that's when their art is usually heralded in the art world. It sucks, but that is the usual thing. It's not like you guys discovered something new with the Mona Lisa.
Also, a lot of NFTs are not supposed to just be artwork. I thought they had like projects associated with them, and like the artwork was more of like they say like a receipt of your participation and whatever being a part of that project theoretically entitles you to. Like, you know, I think the reason they're making this stupid like Red Ape Flash video, which I guess to Emma's question of like, what is this NFT thing? It's like, picture the shittiest Newgrounds video that you've ever seen, but like worse because it's not earnest.
Watch it.
It's like an old boys like VIP club. Like they claim like, yeah, you buy the NFT connected to an artwork to show off the artwork, but you also get access to a really great community of people on Discord or whatever.
That's like it's a pyramid scheme.
Yeah.
Right? That's what it is.
Yeah. You want to watch this, Matt?
Well, we have Bored Ape NFTs have their own bizarre cartoon now. This is from Motherboard. NFT apes escape a dying planet on the Musk 1 spaceship in this animated short, executive produced by 2 Chainz, who I do like, but I mean,
executive produced by 2 Chainz. Okay, yeah, gotta play this one.
2 Chainz loves decentralization too.
Bugger. Fuck. Stupid, nonsensical, goddamn Yetis are at it again.
Leave it to me, boys.
Oh God, it's like a guerrilla music video opening, but like terrible.
Hey, buddy, you flown this thing before, or, Well, actually, I had my first flight just last week. Long story short, ended up a little dead. Yeah, this is a good start. Yep, real good.
All right, let's just be clear. Like, this is like, nothing is a better example of why it's important that like you actually get people who know how to write for like TV or movies or cartoons or anything like that in general, when you have some sort of entertainment project or idea or whatever, and you are some like brand marketer or tech loser, because you got no idea how to write, no idea, with all that money, they couldn't hire a better audio producer. You can hear the different background noises based on what character is talking. They're clearly not using the same quality microphone for each character. It's so bad, so bad.
It sounds like I produced it audio-wise.
Your audio sounds, but your audio right now talking would be better than whatever they did, and you don't have millions of dollars from selling 10,000 images of an ape.
But that's the important part. Like, people, and not just me, have made the comment that it looks like something from Newgrounds, like the old like Flash animation video uploading site from the early 2000s. And it does in terms of quality of like animation, but in terms of like actual effort put into it and like artistic integrity and like, even just technical quality, it's like way worse than even some of like the worst stuff on Newgrounds. It's just so like cynical. Like, how do you get
cash grab? Cynical.
All that Newgrounds stuff though is from like, it's now from what, 25 years ago? We're talking late 90s, early 2000s. Like, if they're claiming they're trying to do like an ode to Newgrounds style, that'd be one thing. But I don't think that's what they're going for. I don't
know what they're claiming.
Yeah, I just think that's the best they can do because they really aren't the artists. Like that's the thing. NFTs are being sold as this idea that like, no, it's really good for the art world because you get to make the artists put their NFT on the blockchain, and then every time it's sold, they get a commission. But the most popular NFT projects, the ones that are super big and making all this money, Bored Ape is one of them. It's basically brand marketers and tech VCs and other people in that world commissioning artists to create a few ape pictures for a one-time fee, and then they take those ape artwork pieces, they generate 10,000 of them via computer, and then they're the ones who put it on the blockchain, and then they're the ones who did not draw this shit. They're the ones who make all this money, and then they're the ones who make the commission every time it's sold. So the whole argument this is supposed to be good for the artist, like for the struggling arts, like that even is bullshit. Like even on that level, it's completely wrong.
Why do I care about supporting the art world? Like, I mean, I guess supporting the independent artists, yes, maybe, but that's not like enough for me to pour millions into or whatever.
Well, that's what they're claiming. Like an indie artist draws their NFT, draws their artwork, mints it as an NFT, sells it on one of the major NFT marketplaces or auction houses. And then they get that one-time fee for selling it the first time. And then every time it gets sold down the line, that artist makes a commission from that. It's sort of like a royalty for artwork. You know, I guess I could see if you're like a painter or like a fine artist and you're used to selling artwork one time, it looks nice. Oh, wow. I mean, if I just make an NFT of it, I can constantly make money off that one piece. But I mean, we're seeing that that's not how it's being used. It's being used to enrich the very worst, the people who are continuing to perpetuate this one-time small commission for an artist. So then they could go ahead with the artist's work and sell it multiple times via this NFT scam grift.
No, I mean, that's definitely true, Matt. And I think also about that, so, you know, just because, you know, some artist at some point, some individual artist makes a percentage of the take on that money laundering scam does not make it not money laundering. But that's like the same technique that a lot of industries, a lot of, you know, parasitic and, you know, deleterious industries use to kind of disguise just how bad they are for the environment and for society, but also just how little they're actually providing. Because, you know, you hear the same kind of thing when people like criticize Marvel movies, to make a kind of lazy analogy, where it becomes like, yeah, you know, this is just like a shitty algorithmically based product that is meant to make $1 billion and sell you on like a version of reality that is not necessarily real or true, or like, you know, socially, I would say not socially, but like environmentally healthy. But in fact, because some point it's like, it's promoting like a decentralized wealth or promoting like LGBTQ advancements. Like now there's doing women-owned NFTs, like all of these sort of little individualistic, allowing people who are otherwise can be said to be marginalized to like make individual advancement. It's supposed to counteract the entire like terrible industry or terrible structure that it's built upon, when in reality we know like that's just a very not only marginal part of the people who are making the money, but so many more people are losing money on these things for like, you know, being told that it is a viable mechanism for making, you know, a living as an artist, when you're probably better off just making furry personas for people.
All right, we're good. Let's read some IMs, and I think we gotta run, if that's okay with you guys.
No, I want to talk more about NFTs, Emma.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we covered it. Dan from Columbus, I did enjoy a line in the NFT show when one of the characters thinks it stands for non-fuckable toucan. I don't. What?
Sure.
I mean,
that is genius, right? Great stuff.
Prairie Fire Kowalski, hey, I'm a Matt, better Matt. Brandon and Bradley, people need to get on Discord. We've got memes, jokes, and much more. I do want to get on Discord. Anywho, we survived the land twisters and temperature fluctuations. The storm was described by meteorologists as possible for this time of year. Shouldn't be possible after September. Climate change will continue to cost us an exorbitant amount of time, resources, and unfortunately lives. The fact that we have hundreds of thousands of people every week going without power into historic weather events makes it all the more disheartening to that the Build Back Better plan is no longer on the table. We have tried center policies with Obama, right policies with Trump, and centrist policies with Biden again. I feel like there's only one direction left to try. That's a good way to put it. Solidarity. Thanks, Prairie Fire Kowalski. White communists. Imagine if some Germans defiantly called the self-styled master race Schmarians instead of Aryans. Would the moral person say Schmarian is a racist word? Or like Nazi slurs for Jews? Censoring cracker shows how Americans pretend the construct white people is benign or separable from white supremacy, unlike Aryan people and Nazism. A society where cracker is offensive but white isn't says a lot. Who would Schmarian have offended? Only Nazis. I'm not sure. Following, I agree that cracker is not offensive.
I know. I think, I agree with Emma. Cracker is offensive, but I think it more readily shows that people in our society just do not understand the difference between like systemic, structural, institution, etc. violence and like interpersonal insults. And so the idea that what makes like
I think it's offensive is what I'm saying.
I mean, it can be an insult. People can be insulted by. I can't control what people are offended by, but people pretend as though their own personal offense gives it the same weight as historical injustice. And I think that's been allowed due to like a flattening of power, just generally over the past few decades. And, you see terms being used like bullying as a stand-in for, harassment or oppression because it allows like people with more power in case, like let's say a Kristen Sinema or Kamala Harris or like a Joe Biden or someone to say, I'm being bullied online, which is, obviously not at the same level of like what they're capable of doing to other people to, make their lives miserable, but it's treated as though it has the same weight to it. And I think that, that the cracker is a slur thing is a very good example of where you end up when we've done so much work to just make it impossible for people to understand these different gradients of power.
Well, I mean, the origin of it, people don't even, I don't know how much Hassan covered it when he was on here, but like the origin of it was because of cracking whips for slavery. Like, I mean, fine. If white people want, like, if the one thing is that some white people get offended by that, like, okay, the term should still be allowed to be used based on everything that like is in the history of it.
Well, I mean, people will like try to quibble over the etymology of cracker, how it became a slur, because they're like, oh, actually it was like the Irish people in the UK were being like, it was a slur used against lower class, and so that's why it's blah 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 blah. But I mean honestly, we know like why this is being done, and there's been a concerted effort for the past 20 years to either allow like a certain like far right demagogue commentator free use of the N-word, and otherwise, if you're not going to do that, to pretend as though there is an equatable word for white people or an equatable amount of oppression for white people through various vehicles. And this is just another one of those things. Another one of those things where it's like, okay, well, I guess because it makes an individual person upset, we have to pretend as though that individual person is representing an entire valid argument about like a way a structure of power works. Like if I mean, maybe I'm a sensitive type, but if someone tells me, hey, and I like them, hey, don't call me a word because it upsets me, I think we can have that conversation without it becoming like a systemic one. But, some people find the need to elevate these problems of, being called an insult to whatever level they think it makes it necessary for them to be treated with the level of victimhood, on the far right side that they think it warrants.
Right.
Yeah, and that's a central political project in this country, like to make sure people don't understand and continue to collapse those differences.
Yeah.
It's like a continued project to make sure that like racism is treated like not that big of a deal and a thing of the past, and continuing to pretend as though like things are just even. And this is another way to do that.
All right, we're going to read 5 more IMs and then we're going to get out of here. Crackers and Cheese says, cracker is no more offensive than calling someone stupid. Strappy Wappy, this kind of stuff makes people question if Biden is actually better than Trump. The Biden DOJ has pulled out of negotiations to financially compensate families separated by the Trump administration. Yes, I think we covered that either a week ago or a few days ago. Chicken Shit Seder, Salad Fingers was a much greater character. I literally thought of Salad Fingers when I saw that. I was, God, that was a throwback to growing up. Dago Lefty, kind of wish those border drones were utilized. I give it 3 months and all the drones will wind up on souvenir stands in Tijuana and Nogales. With enough patience, you could patiently talk the vendor down to $2 for a military-grade drone. And the final IM of the day, Congressional baseball fan. In my experience, the exact kind of people who are offended by the word cracker are the same ones who don't understand why I scoff when they refer to matzo as those big crackers.
I was a bit confused. There seemed to be a bit of confusion before. You said you are very offended by the use of the term cracker, and you don't appreciate people using it. That's what you said, right?
That is not what I said, but I mean, I guess yeah. I mean, I will not stand for the anti-white racism on this show. Regardless. Great show today, guys. Thanks so much for taking calls, for calling in, audience, and writing in your IMs, even though, like, again, my computer, I lose them all the time and it pisses me off. But regardless, have a wonderful day. Thanks to everybody. We will see you all tomorrow for Casual Friday.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bar. But finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in.